Okay, what is the meaningful digestion for us actually? What is the importance of the digestion in our life?
I think it's very concrete, because nowadays, our world has become so complex and so digital, and we get all these advices: eat this, eat that, do this diet, don't do that diet, there's so much information. And I think the gut really makes things way more simple and clear. Like, if you understand the organ that actually digests your food, then from there you can decide for yourself. And you can understand it better when it, has pain, or when it makes you feel bloated. If you just understand the organ better, you don't have to try around with all the foods so randomly or so irritated, but you have a bit more clearance and you have a bit more certainty. And you start building up a little bit of a connection to the organ when you understand it. For example, just understanding that it takes 2 or 3 hours for food to be absorbed in the bloodstream. That's a very concrete information. But what can people do with it? They can really see, when I eat, I look on the watch, 2 to 3 hours later, how do I feel? And this is what the food cost. And so just a simple thing like this can help people. Or that when people say, oh, eat vegetables, why? You really have to explain it to me, so I do it. And that's why I like science sometimes, because it makes it simpler. And when you look at vegetables, you see that they feed certain kinds of bacteria that can help you, that cannot make you bloated if they're in the right balance, or if they can give you vitamins that they extract from the food, much more than the food would give you on its own. And for example, what I found super interesting was just a study about rice, because it showed that when rice was prepared earlier, it was cooked and then it cooled down to the room temperature, and then it would be reheated or eaten cold. And now, for example, when we have rice cookers and it just stays warm all the time, then it's easier to digest in the very upper parts, so it won't go all the way down to the microbiome, which is in the last part of the gut, the colon. So it makes rice, for example, a bit more prebiotic, a bit more healthy for the gut if it cools down just one time after cooking. And you can even reheat it after, but it shows that people, for example, will not gain so much weight when they cook rice like this. So it's just to understand this is only because it feeds the bacteria and it's absorbed slower in the gut, because the enzymes are able to unpack the rice slower when it has cooled down once, because it crystallizes. So those are a few just very concrete things, and I think you only understand them when you understand the gut, and that's why I love it, and that's why I think it's super helpful.
The second asker, Dr. Anders.
Hi, okay. Hi, Kak Emmy. So I had already prepared some questions that I would love to ask before this webinar, but some of them had been already answered through your presentation, so thank you. But there are 2 questions remains unanswered for me, so I would love to ask that question. First is, we know that food or diet we consume is really important for our I would like to ask, is there any other, apart from the food or diet we consume, is there any other factor that affect the gut health? And the last one is eating in certain food order will result differently in gut health than just eat the food randomly? Because in glucose case, food order really matter. And I would love to know, is it apply the same to our gut? And thank you.
Thank you for the question. When you said first, what other things matter for the gut besides the food? And then you ask about the order in which we eat foods. When we talk about the gut, there were actually studies carried out asking the exact question, is genetics more important for gut problems or food? And they found that food is more important. And for the microbiome also, the food that we eat can change the microbiome within 3 days. So there are other factors for the microbiome and for the gut, but still food remains the first and most important. And when we talk about other factors, then what I already mentioned, what we already had discussed a little bit, is things like stress and stress hormones. The nerves that innervate the gut can react to stress. Then we have pollution in the food, but also in the air, for example. This can have an influence. We have, of course, immune system. If we have a virus infection, if it's even just in the nose and in the lungs, then this will make the immune system be more aggressive, also towards the bacteria in the gut. So that what is happening in the immune system will highly influence also the bacteria in the gut. And it has been shown with COVID also that COVID will change the microbiome. It makes the immune system a bit less tolerant, sadly, and understandably. And so also, there have been studies and research fields named with other axes. So we have the gut-brain axis, how the gut influences the brain, but also how the brain influences the gut. But we have that also with the liver. We have a liver-gut axis. We have a kidney-gut axis. That's why in these other organs, and also a lung-gut axis. So in our body, all the organs are connected. And so all these other organs will also have an effect. And I think it's safe to say everything influences everything, and it's safe to say food is still the most important. And then sports, the muscles also, it's shown in athletes that they have a certain kind of bacteria, a mucinophila kind, A. mucinophila. This is especially seen in athletes that can have a very thin figure. They don't put weight easily. And it's thought that it's one factor that they have this kind of bacteria, for example. And because of sports, it's more likely to grow in your gut. So there's all these different kind of connections. And then the order in which we eat food. I am a little bit friends with a French author, and she has done research about this also. And she has shown that her hypothesis on this, and I understand this from a gut perspective, is that when you have the raw foods first, like a salad or raw fruit, and then you have the rest of the food, then it will also make digestion a bit slower, because the raw foods are digested more heavily. It's like a bit more work. So it will take more time. The gut will have to do more. So the rest is not being digested so fast. So this can make it good to have slower digestion. And slow digestion can be beneficial for metabolism. But then when you're really stressed, you might want to give it some food first and then not have so many raw things, but also have raw things. Yeah. But, and I want to say this quite clear, I have never been like too much of a person that tells other people how to eat or how to do. I've seen it many times in my patients that when they have a feeling, this is not good for me, then it's good to trust the feeling. And sometimes there are wondrous things where they find out this really helps me if I eat this, and if I can't have strawberries or something. And it's sometimes really good to listen to that. And also sometimes you have to make a decision. For example, fast food. We love fast food and we love candy, but we have to understand why it's tricking our brains. And then other foods, if you really like olives, they're not tricking your brain. So if you really like them, have them. So I'm a fan of following your feeling, but knowing why you like something, Yeah.
So guys, for you have raised your hand. Nadia Divyandini, please.
My name is Nadia Divyandini. You can call me Nadia. I have a question for you. When I was a 5th grade student, I liked science class a little. My favorite section is about human digestive system. But now in that lesson, we have 2 parts of the gut, small and large, and includes rectum too. As we know, the only bacteria in our gut are Escherichia coli atau E. coli. Now I realize that there are a lot of bacteria in our gut, not only E. coli. The question is, what kind of bacteria that cause intestinal problems?
Okay.
I'm not sure if I understood the last part. Did you ask if there are other bacteria that what bacteria cause problems basically in the gut?
Apakah mungkin maksud pertanyaannya adalah jenis bakteri apa yang menyebabkan penyakit tertentu? Betul ya, Nadia?
Yes.
Okay, yes, correct. Please, you can answer it now. Yes.
So thank you for your question, Nadia. And I think there's two categories that I would roughly say. One is, of course, just bacteria that make us sick. Like if you have a Campylobacter or Salmonella infection, then you will just be really sick. And there's a lot more, like there's also toxic E. coli bacteria, EHEC, we had this, for example. So there's a bunch of bacteria, Shigellen, that will make you sick, Listerien. Sometimes I only know the German words, I'm sorry. And this is the one category. Clear, bad bugs, don't want them. And then we have the other category, which is in the microbiome. So let's say in this forest of bacteria and viruses and yeasts and archaea, there are some that can influence just the balance a little bit, so that they're maybe just a little bit too much. And this is what the whole big microbiome research is trying to find out. They're not sure about this yet, but they've seen like different trends. Like sometimes if people eat lots and lots and lots of meat, they might have a bit more bacteria of the Bacteroides, or bacteria that are able to produce nitrate and ammoniac, which can be poisonous and can cause gut cancer, for example. So these bacteria on their own, or a few of them, or just a little percentage, are not a problem. But when they go over a certain kind of percentage, then the balance is a problem. It's like in a population, when there's too much people of just one kind, it's not so good. We always need diverse, lots of different people with different ways of doing things. That's the safest way, and also in the gut. So I think those are the two categories when you talk about bad in the gut. Was that an okay answer for you? Or
That's all. Thank you.